So Beach Channel Live got a special guest today. We're doing an author series, author of a great book on autism, and a friend of mine and somebody that I've known for how many years?
Oh gosh, 25 years, I believe.
Think 25 is the right number.
Yeah.
So first off, before we get into the book, and I like the book, it's a easy read, but it's got all kinds of information in it real quick. I think people need to know your background.
Yeah.
Let's start at the thing that I learned recently was you were an engineering
Yes.
you were an engineering student when you
Yes.
were working at the
Victory
where?
School. Yeah, at the Victory School. I've always wanted to be, I wanted to fly for the Blue Angels. I used to volunteer every summer when they would bring the Air Force would come over in Opelika because I went to Hialeah High School. I was a part of their aviation magnet program.
Right.
So we always used to volunteer there, and I love flying. And then it just didn't work out that way for me.
I need to add that you're one of the few graduates from Hialeah High School who doesn't speak Spanish, right?
I know. It's so funny. I laugh about it all the time. I understand a lot. I pretend like I don't understand, but I understand a lot. But no, I don't speak Spanish. I speak Patois, which is,
Okay.
Jamaican.
All right. So you were engineering student, you wanted to do all that, and then you got into the autism field as an assistant teacher at the Victory School,
It
right?
was by accident. I was working at Hialeah High School, right out of high school, and I met a lot of families, and a friend of mine opened a daycare. She asked if I wanted to work there part-time. I was working there. I just fell in love with this little boy that had a twin brother. They had autism, but the mom asked me if I would babysit for them, and I was like, oh, sure, why not? And then I fell in love with working with them, and they would do things with me that they wouldn't do with their therapist. And she goes, I'm going to get you trained. She got me trained. And then all of a sudden I had 2 kids, and then I ended up having 20 kids, within a month span. And then I met Barry and Judy Nelson. They were going to open up a school, asked me if I wanted to be an aide there. I was like, sure, why not? I don't really know what I want to do because, I wanted to work for Homestead Air Force Base. Then we had Hurricane Andrew. That kind of fell apart. So I decided to work for them, and they were great people for me. They helped me go back to school.
Visionaries in the
They were
autism
visionaries.
field.
And Dr. Michael Alexandria, all these people that I met over the years just believed in what I was doing. And I started to believe, oh, I can do this. I'm good at this. And then I got promoted so fast at the Victory School. I became a classroom director, then the educational director, then the executive director. And it's just easy for me to work with kids with autism.
Well, I mean, we got to look at the way autism was back then.
Yeah.
I had the privilege to be on that board,
Yeah.
that first board when Dr. Alexandria just came into the
Yeah.
Card Center. I think the Card Center just started.
Just had started, yeah.
And at that time, autism was, not many people knew about it.
No, not at all.
And the way those schools were managed was you had kind of administrators who were hands off. They
Yeah.
were their research, and they didn't want to get dirty
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And the Victory School went through 2 or 3 of those.
And that's how I end up getting promoted, because the director that they had, for whatever reason, she just was not involved in teaching the kids. And that's what I love to do. Even now, you see me walking around campus with my heels going into the classroom.
Oh, yeah,
that's
and
my
you're
passion.
happy.
And
I saw the other side of it. On the board side, it was she didn't want to touch dirty kids. Didn't want to get their hands dirty. And you're in there battling every day.
Yeah.
You're getting bit and
remember when I had a net? Were you there when I got that net brace?
Absolutely. You're taking hits and everything else and the behaviors and stuff. And can you be successful with being hands off in this field?
You know what? I don't think you're respected if you're hands off, because the kids know. You come into a classroom and you're given feedback. The teachers aren't going to respect you. The kids aren't going to respect you. And I think you have to build that repertoire, that relationship with our students. And I could see your daughter, across the room, and she's doing something she's not. And I'm like, Al, right then and there, she knows that's or Miss Tammy. That's what she knew me as for all those years. And she knows that she needed to straighten up and she needed to do what she needed to do. So for me, it's super important that when you work with this field, for you to be a great director, a great practitioner, you have to be able to do the work yourself.
But the behind the scenes, your daughter's here today, your oldest daughter, just back from Alabama, her first year or whatever else. And she didn't know the behind the scenes of a lot of what was happening. And this is where Barry was innovative.
Yeah.
Because we had traditional school board people on the board and everything else, and they didn't like the ideas of training somebody, and they wanted somebody with 20 years experience and all the other stuff. And when it was proposed, Barry fought it back and said, no, this is a great idea. I think we should, this young lady is very motivated, and we should fund it and do the thing. And Barry
and they sent me back to school. And now I have a PhD because they believed in what I believed in. We believe, well, you know, one of the things that I've always wanted for our student is to have this one-stop shop. A place that they're going to feel comfortable, a place that parents are going to drop their kids off and forget they're even at school.
Right.
You know, and I've had lots of stories about that. I wanted to create a place that our kids felt like my kids.
Well, you're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Okay, let's
we got to talk about the Victory School, though, because, I mean, the Victory School was great, but it had a giant problem.
Yeah.
It was $40,000.
$45,000 plus a give or get.
Yeah. So that you were doing great work, but
parents only could afford it for short periods of time. And for me, it got depressing after a while because I would see students that we work really, really hard, you know, to get them to learn sign language or use a picture communication system. And then the parents only could afford it for like a year or two. Then I would see them and then they would have lost all the skills that the parents worked so hard at.
The parents were mortgaging houses and
lots of parents were divorcing. People were moving from different countries and different states because it was a great program. The sacrifice to go there was what people needed to do for their kids, but you couldn't sustain that. It was too expensive.
So then you saw you were doing great work. You were only helping a limited amount of people, and you said there's a big need.
There's a big need.
And that's where my great friends Robert and Glenn come in.
Yeah, because I remember.
And Susan.
I remember talking to Robert about a charter school because he was the first one that mentioned it, Robert Campbell. He was like, you should do a charter school. I was like, what's a charter school? Because I know what a magnet school is, but I didn't know what a charter school was. And he's like, you should do it. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And he was like, well, let me figure it out. Then I heard through the grapevine that one of her children's parents, Glenn, that's what he does, but out of California. So I called him up. I was like, listen, I heard about this and I think we should meet. And I have a great idea. He's like, okay. And then Susan, who worked for me she did fundraising for me. Her mom worked in like the government, so got the team together. We went and we looked at different schools. I started to do my research, and it so happens that Glenn's background and Robert's background really helped us.
It also helped that they each had an autistic child. Right?
Yes, yes, and Susan. So with these three parents, I was able to I didn't have to convince them. They bought it right off the bat. It's just now, how do we do it? How do we take a great school like the Victory School and provide the same kind of instruction for our kids and still give them that same everything?
I could talk SFACS and everything else.
Yeah.
This isn't about SFACS. This is about your book. But you all established, and you allowed me to be on the board, which I'm grateful every day that I'm on there. A school that now takes care of or handles 288 kids.
88 kids.
And adults. How many adults? 18 to 22?
We have 32 adults, and we have a ridiculous waiting list. We could actually open one more full school and a couple more adult program.
Yeah, and your adult program, you have, what's your oldest?
38.
38. So,
38 years old.
And there's a big demand there, too.
Big demand. And, we didn't stop there. We also are working on trying to get our residential or villages and plus our Friends of South Florida Autism, which is...
That's the vision part. We'll talk about that after. We got to talk book now. I'm all about time, and we got to stay on time.
Yeah.
Producer Debbie will get mad at us if we don't time. So what was the this is the typical author question, but what was the reason for the book? You got so many things going. You got a child first year at school, and you're on something at the school there. You're one of the mothers supporting, so you get there. You're running this school. The last thing you need is to write a book. What was the reason for that?
I've had the privilege of meeting some of the most wonderful kids in my career. I've been in the field now for 28 years, and during those years, I've met some kids who just has really taught me a whole lot. And this whole book is about that. I'm still like you, autism through my point of view. And I started to do some research. How do I put the things that I've learned from these kids on paper? And I started to scribble, scrabble, come up with all these different ideas on what that would look like. And then one night I just started writing and I couldn't stop. And I would come to work and I was like, I finished another chapter. And I'm like, how? And it was so easy for me. It was so easy because these are things that have been said to me and I've experienced over the years. And that's how it started. The last, I would say 5-6 years, I've learned the most. Our kids are doing so much better. They're able to express themselves. And I'm able to work with my nonverbal kids more since some of my kids are now speaking. And I have to say my own 3 kids have taught me a whole lot too. Just seeing them grow up and the things that they say to me. And I look at my students at SFACS, my kids at SFACS, and compare the tantrum I get at my house or the tantrum I get at school. It's the same tantrum. It's just that it's expressed differently.
I went out, the minute you told me about the book, I didn't even know you were doing the book.
No one
and we
knew.
talk a lot. So I immediately told me I ordered one on Amazon and got it the next day. I read the book. I read lots of books. I love the book because I know the buyer. I don't know if you disagree. It's the person who has just had their kid diagnosed with autism and is in that cloud.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do.
And there's a million gigantic books would have little bits of information. I like this. This is an easy read and it hits a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted people to see our kids as a whole child, not just a child with autism, but a child that love and feel and trust and want to make choices and want to be whoever they want to be. And I wanted to let parents know when you get that diagnosis, I mean, I didn't birth a child with autism, but I feel like I've had over 500 kids and maybe even more in the 28 years I've been in the field. And when you look at some of the things that they do, I just feel like they're communicating and we're missing it because we're so busy going to therapy and we're so busy doing all these different things that we're missing them telling us these things.
Well, normally I'd go through this in chapters. I get notes and everything else, but I'm going to go to the chapter that jumped out at me first. They hear you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
First off, we'd explain to everybody that in SFACS, what percentage of your group is nonverbal?
Wow. Right now, we have about maybe 40% of our students that's nonverbal.
So that's a big number.
It's a big number.
But
they all have a way to communicate. It may just not be spoken words like you and I, but they may use sign language or a picture communication system. But all of our students have a way to communicate. But we have about 40% of our students that's nonverbal.
I remember you telling one time, the kids understand and all that. And I'm going, they don't understand. And then I remember we told a joke or something and they laughed.
Yeah.
I go, we better stay away from the bad jokes.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that mean, though, to the parent? Well, I mean, when you're, especially the kids early on, you're talking about strategies and therapies and it's stressful and the money involved.
And the money involved and the divorce and the different things that has happened in relationships.
If you talk about it in front of the kid, what happens?
You don't know how they're interpreting that. They may think it's their fault. And then you're wondering, I don't know why he just had that behavior, or why did he just hit himself, or why did she just hit me? It could be because they think you're talking about them and they're right there. Think about it. Someone's talking about you and you're right there. How would that make you feel? Mm-hmm. So we have a big rule at SFACS. You do not talk about our kids negatively in front of them. If you need to speak to the parents about the day, because everybody have bad days, you make that phone call at the end of the day and you ask first, can you talk? I never have meetings with the kids in my office because it's rude for me to talk about them and they're right there. It depends on what the topic is. Not that you shouldn't have conversation, but just like you would respect your neurotypical kids, you should respect your child with autism too.
So the parents need to know that they understand even though they don't. And I just want to point out real quick, the school's great in a lot of things, but I think you've become known as a school for behaviors.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
I mean, you take behaviors, kids with behaviors that no one else touch.
And you know what? And I don't blame the other place. It's a difficult job, and you have to want to. That's one thing about my school is that SFACS is that everyone that's there, the teachers, they want to be there. We know there's a possibility of you getting hit.
Okay, so my thought, do you agree that the person who's going to read this book is probably recently diagnosed? They're looking for answers and stuff?
I think so too, but I've been getting some feedback, like Glenn read it recently, and he goes, well, I better start giving Grammy more choices. Well, Grammy's 21. He's about to turn 22, and sometimes we forget.
Yes, it reinforces some of us
some
who've
of
been in the war for a while,
Yeah.
yes. But with the message, I think I remember years ago, I mean, everybody, especially when you first find out, it's traumatic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's traumatic to everybody.
Yeah.
And then it's really tough. I mean, you talk about divorce and everything else. I think at one point, I've heard you tell people numerous times, it gets better. It gets better,
It gets better, but I want to say this, and I believe I mentioned it a couple of times in the book. It's not a race. It's not a race. It's a marathon. You have to take your time. And every so often, you have to just stop and think and re-energize yourself and rethink some of the things that you're doing. Because just like we change, like today I like fish, and tomorrow I like steak. You have to sometimes think about what is it that you need to change about what's happening, because you get the same routine every single day. You have to change it up a bit.
Well, the next chapter, I'm jumping around to go to chapter 2, I love. We see these kids, they don't, it's hard to describe. You think, they don't feel a whole lot. They seem very numb or whatever else, but then
No, they love. Listen, I know that Alex Weiler loved me. There's no doubt in this world, because that touch, or when she comes up and she kind of like put her body on you, like that's her saying that I love. So she may not have the words to say, I love you, Dr. Moodie, but she's showing me that and sometimes the words are just words. Actions speak so much louder.
But even though a lot of our population doesn't like hugging or close contact or anything else, they still are emotional,
They
right?
still are super emotional. And if they've been around me for a long time, they're going to love hugging and kissing.
Yes. Isn't it ironic? Yes, exactly. So then chapter 3, I was reading about, I dream. What kind of dreams? I mean,
there's 2 different dreams that I hit on in this chapter. The first part of it is like, I dreamt, like when I was growing up, people used to ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like 4 or 5. And then you say, what's your name? And I used to say, my name is Tamara Latoya, Keisha, lawyer, doctor too. Because I dreamt that I was going to be a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor. I had all these things I wanted to be. And I believe that our kids have dreams and things that they want to be or do. They may see that their sister, is dressing up as a doctor going to work, and may want the same dream too, but don't know how to express that. And then on the flip side of that, I dream, you ever wake up yet and you had a dream and it makes you feel sad? Our kids sometimes are sad, and we're wondering, why are they sad? Well, my dad recently passed away from cancer, and sometimes I think about the little things that I miss, those little phone calls that I don't get him calling me from Jamaica anymore. And it makes me sad, but I can express to my mom, I miss him today.
You address a lot of those dreams with, you do a lot of things at the school what typical kids get. You have a prom.
Yeah.
You have events.
Yeah, we just went on Brightline. We took our kids to Orlando to go eat lunch. Who does that? But we wanted our kids to experience that. Next year I'm planning on taking them on a plane. I want them to experience everything that my kids experience and their brother and sister experience too. I think it's important to give them those experiences. I even have a chapter just on experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was an interesting one. The next one that jumped up on me is you have a chapter 4 called I Trust. And that's where, routine is important to all of us, but I know in the first all autistic people are different and all the other stuff, but it seems like everybody likes a routine. No?
They do, but sometimes you have to kind of mess with the routine. But if you mess with the routine for them or change it up a little bit, if they trust you, they'll go along with it. But how do you get them to trust you? You have to communicate. It's just like a relationship. A man and a woman relationship. It's the same thing with our children. They have to know that I can walk into a room with you blindfolded and I'm going to be okay. So with our kids, that's where you need to establish yourself as a reinforcer. They need to know I can trust you. This is why you should never lie to them because they have autism. Let them be a part of like the conversation. And I'm learning that more and more because more and more my students are telling me this. And I want to hit on the trust
part of
part.
the conversation, though. 40% nonverbal. There's different ways to do that.
Yeah, you can create scenarios. I always tell my teachers, you have to be like an actor when you work with this population, because sometimes you have to create a situation for them to see this is how you act in a situation, and this is how you would perform it. And then when they do it correctly, you reinforce them. Don't wait until they're in crisis to practice it. Practice it before they're in crisis. Mm-hmm. Because a big part of like the trust issue is that I mention it in the book, and it's one of my students who taught me that. And if you read the book, you'll hear more about it. A teacher left and didn't say I wasn't coming back. Yeah. You know, she didn't say I wasn't, but if she had just told the student, you know, I'm not going to come back after the holiday, but she told her, I'll see you after the holiday.
But a typical student would take that as, oh, that's just typical, but she took it to heart.
She took it to heart because everything that I'm like that too. I'm very passionate about things. So I understood where this student was coming from. She goes, Dr. Moodie, she told me that she was coming back. You know, and you have to understand, our neurotypical kids can mask their feelings. Our kids with autism, it's difficult for them to mask their feelings. So when they feel, and how this student explained it to me when I asked her more questions, was, Dr. Moodie, it felt like my chest was falling out. I was so hurt. And I remember, you know, your first love, your first crush, and you think, oh my God, I'm never gonna love again. I can't just imagine that's how she was feeling. That hurt was real.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I just, sometimes I sit in the early care or something, and I just look around at all the kids and all the emotions going on and what they're thinking, and it's amazing. I mean, it's something that you can only experience by being there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is where there's some areas where as parents and all, we go, oh God, we don't want to talk about the needs and social relationships. That's a tough one. And you mentioned in the book, you got to be careful with those because you start bad habits early. Those can get, especially, unfortunately, I'm the father of a daughter who has autism, but the boys have it tougher, I think.
You know, and the other parent may say the opposite of that. It's a tough situation because love, you know, autism doesn't stop love. Autism doesn't stop feelings. And you have to think about that. How do you feel when your heart is broken? You know, so I tell parents all the time, our kids, when their friends aren't at school that day, you can tell they act different. And when they see their friends for the first time after being out for like a week, just the hugging, and that has taught me that they have friendship, true friendship, you know. And I didn't really get into masturbation and all of that in the book as such, but
you talk about a little bit about places. Their bedroom's the right place, bathroom's the wrong place because they're in multiple bathrooms.
You know, and I've had like disagreement with parents. It's like, but he's touching himself, he shouldn't. But I'm like, and I've said this, and sometimes parents freak out. I'm like, but don't you touch yourself? You know, but the reality is,
then they turn red. Then they turn red.
You know, but the reality is that our kids, they feel, and if they feel, they're going to explore, and if they explore, they're going to see what they like and what they don't like.
But with social media and all these fake things, what they see, fake relationship types of things, they sometimes have trouble. And this is where I'm talking about why I think it's tougher being a boy with autism as opposed to a girl, because a girl can go up and and hug them, and they can take it like whatever. A boy comes up and
their whole body changes,
and all of a sudden somebody's calling the police or whatever. So
and you know, a lot of our boys have, so funny. I remember one of our students asked one of her teachers to the prom, and he was so hurt when she told him, I couldn't go to the prom with you. That's David, who works in the front office. And he was so hurt by that. So I know our kids love, and we just need to be careful of those little things that we may miss, the kiss on the lips.
You mentioned that, like, if a grandmother's doing that all the time, and then when they're 18 or 19,
and they want to kiss a teacher or someone they see on the road, and then you have to unteach that, and now they think you don't love me.
And unteaching is hard.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what, with a lot of the behaviors and all, when they learn them, to get them, that's everything, right?
That's everything.
They learn these bad things and all that.
Yeah.
So, and then the other chapter, you can still learn. What does that mean? I was going through that, and I guess that's like you were saying what Glenn was talking about. He went through the book and he saw some stuff. Well, I need to do that.
I still need to do that.
His son's 21.
You know what? I remember when I first got in the field, there was this thing about at 5 years old, if they haven't learned it yet, it's going to be so difficult. But you know what? We should never stop teaching. We should never stop teaching. We should look at what we're teaching, but we should never stop teaching. The last couple of years, I've seen a lot of our kids who've had to go live in residential homes. And if we don't teach them what it is that you need to be doing at 22, sometimes at 22 is different from 12, is different from 16. So you should always be teaching. So you should never stop teaching, because our kids don't stop learning.
So the last chapter is about I'm all the things, please remember that. So dealing with behaviors, advice to new parents, and one's dealing with extreme behaviors. What would your advice be in that situation?
Parents who's, say the question again, I'm sorry.
Well, it's chapter 7, so I'm all these things, please remember that.
Yeah.
So there's complicated things going on.
There's a lot of, because
so, I mean, when parents are dealing with extreme behaviors and all the other stuff, sometimes, or I've seen you simplify things where just like the one I always use is pick your battles.
Yeah. So, and I think I said that in this book too, because ultimately at the end of the day, we get pregnant, or your mom, you plan to have a baby, and you have these plans for your baby, and then you get a diagnosis, and then you have to go through the cycle of all these different things that doctors have told you, schools have told you, and then you get to the point that you're like, gosh, my kid have autism. What am I going to do? And that's where you have to now think, it's okay, but this is the things that I need to do for him to still be able to function. I'm all these things. I love, I care. I love better than anybody else, because my love is unconditional. There's no jealousy. There's no malice. It's all just pure love. You're my mom, you're my dad, and I love you. So I want parents in that chapter to remember, I'm all these things. I'm not just a child with autism. I'm not just a part of the spectrum. I am a boy. I'm a girl. I love to dance. I want to travel. I want to experience love. I want to be able to make my own choices. Like, am I going to wear the red polo versus the gray polo? What am I going to eat today for lunch or dinner? So I just wanted people to, like, whoever is reading this book, parents, caregivers, because I think that caregivers, parents, siblings, this book is for anyone, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest thing about this book is, you're hands-on. You can tell that you're hands-on. Most books you read about autism are like research and this, and you're going like, that doesn't help me right now.
No.
and
then it's long. I wanted it to be to the point. And if you want more information, just follow me or follow the school, and you'll get more information about these things. But I didn't want you to put the book down. I didn't want you to take a whole month to read the book. I wanted you to be able to read it sit down and read.
Yeah, and you can reference back on certain things if you want to. I found it very informative. And like Glenn, there's a couple things I go, oh, God, Alex is 28. I got to start doing that. Oh, no. So the book's available on Amazon.
Yes,
and can they buy it on the SFACS site too? Or
I don't know. You know what? I haven't asked my board if I could do that yet.
There might be a conflict. I bought my own. I didn't even get one, so I bought my own. No conflict there.
No, but it is on Amazon. It's easy. If you just put my name in, it pops up now. And I've been getting some really good reviews from folks that have, called me and, oh my God, I read the book. So I'm excited.
Amazon was great and fast. So available on Amazon.com. Okay, so the book, we go through that. Now we got to talk about, lots of things happening. You got a award the other day from Dade County Public Schools. A lot of people think that, as being a charter, that we don't, you deal closely with Miami-Dade.
Oh gosh, we play so well in the sandbox. Like, they've been great supporters of ours. And, you know, I have nothing negative to say. They've just been great. Right now, we're about to look at expanding a second campus. Hopefully, we could get that ready for August. There's just lots of good things that's happening. We're looking at our residential more closely now. I wrote another book that is it's not coming out for another like 2 months.
Oh, we forget that right now. We'll talk about that one another time.
But it's a
Amazon.com, this one right now. Yes.
It's a children's book, which is really good. It's for kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
But lots of good things that's happening. My board. The center, yes. The center, and I can't wait for that, you know, because we're going to have the pool and we're going to have the gym. And there's a lot, I want to have a one-stop shop that our kids feel comfortable, their friends are there. And we're having some kids working now. Yeah. So, you know, we're working with the Ken Screw from out of Home Depot. So we're doing a lot of good things.
Yeah, and we're talking about businesses. And
businesses. And actually, we are about to get our license with Volk Rehab, you know, and just a lot of good things, and we're helping community. And I mean, to be honest, when parents are driving from Homestead every day and we're in Hialeah, or driving from West Palm Beach every day and we're in Hialeah, or Palmetto Bay or Palmetto Bay every day and we're in Hialeah, we're doing something good.
Yeah,
I have the best staff that anyone could ever ask for too. They truly believe in our mission, and you can't buy that.
Yeah. No, people who are watching this, they should go to SFACS.org.
Yes.
You can take a look at that. There's a tour video on there.
Yes.
And
that we won an award for.
Yeah, exactly. You're an award-winning executive producer too. That's right.
Yes.
I forgot that in all your accolades
need to add
or whatever.
That to my LinkedIn.
Yes, exactly. So, well, I love the book. I think everybody should like the book. What's happening at SFACS is unbelievable. Yeah. I'm glad you include me a little bit on it and all that stuff. And I love being involved.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming down here and talking about the book. That's Beach Channel Live, Amazon.com. I am still like you. Autism through
my point of view.
My point of view.
Yes.
You got to get it.